How to Talk in English. Leo stared blankly at the English textbook, a knot of dread tightening in his stomach. He yearned to express himself, to connect with the world beyond his native tongue, but a persistent fear held him captive. Every potential English word felt like a trap, every sentence an impending public failure. I don't want to make mistakes, but I always do. Why? He whispered, a question echoing his deepest insecurity about language acquisition. He often dreamt of effortlessly chatting with tourists, ordering coffee in London, or understanding every line of his favorite British dramas without subtitles. Yet, the moment he considered uttering a simple hello, his throat seized up. The pressure of perfection was an unbearable weight, silencing his every linguistic aspiration before it even began. His mind was a whirlwind of grammatical rules and vocabulary lists, but his tongue felt like a foreign object. He understood phrases when he read them, sometimes even when he heard them, but producing them himself was an entirely different, terrifying ordeal. How to talk in English seemed an impossible riddle. He avoided situations where English might be required, making excuses, pretending not to hear. The thought of a simple interaction filled him with a crippling anxiety. He knew he needed to improve, but the path felt shrouded in fog, and his confidence remained at rock bottom, a constant source of frustration. Friends encouraged him, suggesting casual conversation, but Leo couldn't shake the fear of sounding foolish. He'd open his mouth, a grammatically perfect sentence forming in his head, only for it to crumble into incoherent mumbles or an awkward silence. The cycle of self-doubt persisted relentlessly. He tried various apps, watched countless tutorials, and even joined an online forum, yet genuine spoken progress eluded him. He felt stuck in a perpetual loop of passive learning, absorbing information but utterly incapable of active participation. How to learn English? He wondered, feeling overwhelmed by options. One evening, scrolling through old notes, he stumbled upon an old language learning blog post about consistency. It wasn't about complex grammar or obscure vocabulary, but about a simple, powerful idea. Talk in English just 1 page per day. This concept resonated deeply with his desire for structure. The idea seemed deceptively simple, almost too easy to be effective. Could such a small daily commitment really make a difference? He decided to give it a try, starting with a short paragraph from a children's book. No pressure, just a page, every single day, without fail. His first attempts were clumsy, his pronunciation wobbly, and his rhythm all over the place. But the beauty of the 1-page rule was its low stakes. He wasn't performing. He was just practicing. It was a private, unjudged space for him to make as many mistakes as he pleased. He began reading aloud, articulating each word, feeling the unfamiliar movements of his mouth and tongue. Soon, he wasn't just reading. He was trying to rephrase sentences, narrate simple actions, building a quiet, consistent routine. This was his first step in how to talk in English. The most crucial advice he found next was to start talking at home. This felt incredibly liberating. No audience, no judgment, just him and the echoes of his own voice bouncing off the living room walls. This became his sanctuary for spoken practice, a vital breakthrough. He started describing his morning routine aloud. I am brushing my teeth. The water is cold. He narrated cooking dinner. I am chopping vegetables. The knife is sharp. It felt silly at first, like talking to himself. but the words slowly started to flow more naturally from his lips. His home transformed into a linguistic laboratory. He labeled objects with sticky notes and practiced saying their names and describing their functions. He pretended to have conversations with imaginary friends, practicing introductions and basic small talk without any pressure. This consistent, private practice built a foundational comfort with the sounds and rhythms of English. He wasn't striving for perfection, but for fluency in movement, for the ability to form words without hesitation. The fear of mistakes began to subtly recede in this safe space. The realization dawned on him. Talking at home wasn't about grand speeches. It was about building muscle memory for his mouth and brain. It was about making English feel less like a foreign concept and more like a natural extension of his thoughts, bit by laborious bit. Then came the advice, why you must read English. He'd always enjoyed reading in his native language, but English texts felt daunting. Now, he began to see reading as a wellspring of vocabulary, grammar, and natural expression, not just a test of comprehension. It was essential. He started with simplified readers, then moved to short stories, gradually increasing complexity. Reading allowed him to absorb sentence structures and common phrases effortlessly. He wasn't just learning words. He was internalizing how they fit together in authentic contexts. This led directly to the concept of learn English through stories. He found that engaging narratives made learning a joy rather than a chore. Plot, character, and suspense drove him forward, making him forget he was even studying. It was truly immersive and captivating. He devoured short detective stories, then fantasy novels, completely lost in their worlds. The emotional connection to the characters and plots cemented new vocabulary and idioms far more effectively than any flashcard drill ever could. His comprehension soared remarkably. He would read a paragraph, then try to summarize it aloud, reinforcing both his understanding and his speaking skills. This active engagement with the material transformed reading from a passive activity into a dynamic learning experience, greatly aiding retention and recall. Reading aloud from stories also enhanced his pronunciation and intonation. He started mimicking the rhythm he heard in audiobooks, developing a more natural cadence. It wasn't just about understanding. It was about sounding natural, about making the language his own, authentically. The stories provided context for tricky phrases and cultural nuances that textbooks often missed. He was learning not just what to say, but how and when to say it, developing an intuitive grasp of the language's subtle complexities. It was a profound learning experience. As he continued his daily reading and at-home speaking, Leo noticed a subtle but significant shift in his confidence. The words still didn't flow perfectly, but the paralyzing fear was diminishing. He was now less afraid of making small errors, a crucial turning point. This growing ease led him to explore how to make confidence in speaking. He realized confidence wasn't about knowing everything, but about being comfortable with imperfection. It was about allowing himself to be vulnerable and accepting that mistakes are part of the process. He started small, practicing with his reflection in the mirror, delivering mock presentations to an empty room. He recorded himself speaking and listened back, not to criticize, but to identify areas for gentle improvement. This self-assessment was empowering and productive. He began to reframe mistakes not as failures, but as opportunities for learning. Each stumble was a sign he was pushing his boundaries, actively engaging with the language. This mindset shift was profoundly liberating, changing his entire perspective on learning. He also sought out low-stakes real-life practice opportunities. He started ordering coffee in English, asking simple questions at the supermarket, or greeting strangers with a confident hello. These small victories slowly built his courage, step by measured step. The more he spoke, the less daunting it became. He realized that most people were patient and encouraging, far from the judgmental audience he had imagined. Their understanding fueled his motivation, making him eager for more opportunities to communicate effectively. One day, he stumbled upon a podcast entirely in British English. He'd always admired the accent and unique vocabulary. "Let's talk in British English," he declared to himself, embracing a new, exciting facet of his linguistic journey, driven by pure fascination. He immersed himself in British TV shows, from comedies to documentaries, paying close attention to intonation and colloquialisms. He downloaded apps focusing on British pronunciation, attempting to mimic the sounds of native speakers with diligent practice. Learning British English felt like adding a new layer to his understanding. He discovered delightful new phrases like cheers for thanks, loo for toilet, and cuppa for tea. It wasn't just about speaking, it was about embracing a cultural identity, too. He found online communities dedicated to British English learners, joining discussions, and even participating in virtual meetups. This provided a safe, supportive environment to practice his newly acquired accent and vocabulary without fear of judgment. His focus shifted from avoiding mistakes to actively identifying and learning from them. When he mispronounced a word or used an incorrect tense, he would make a mental note, look it up later, and consciously practice the correct form until it stuck. The dreaded question, "I don't want to make mistakes, but I always why," now had a new answer. It wasn't a flaw, it was a sign of growth. Mistakes were simply data points, guiding him toward better understanding and more accurate expression, a crucial insight. He stopped chastising himself for errors and instead celebrated his willingness to try. Each mistake was a stepping stone, not a stumbling block. This positive self-reinforcement transformed his learning process from a struggle into an adventure of continuous discovery. He now understood that true fluency wasn't about speaking without error, but about speaking effectively despite them. It was about conveying his message clearly, even if he occasionally stumbled or chose an imperfect word. Communication was the ultimate goal. His journey became a living answer to how to improve your English. It wasn't one single method, but a harmonious blend of daily habits: reading, speaking aloud at home, learning through stories, and intentionally building confidence through consistent, brave attempts. He diversified his practice, listening to English radio, watching films without subtitles, and even attempting to write short entries in a daily English journal. Every interaction, every piece of media, became an opportunity for immersion and growth, ceaselessly. Leo started seeking out native English speakers in his city, initiating conversations, no longer paralyzed by shyness. He joined a local book club that discussed novels in English, contributing his thoughts and actively participating in lively debates, a true breakthrough. He discovered that genuine communication was far more forgiving than he had ever imagined. People appreciated his effort, his willingness to engage, and his improving ability to express himself. The connections he made were incredibly rewarding and motivating, truly. His confidence soared, not because he was perfect, but because he was present and actively participating. He could now hold extended conversations, share jokes, and discuss complex topics without constantly second-guessing every single word that left his mouth. The boy who once whispered, "Why do I always make mistakes?" now embraced every slip as a sign of progress. He had transformed his fear into fuel, his insecurities into determination, becoming a testament to the power of consistent, brave, and joyful practice, truly. He continued to read a page of English every day, but now it was from a challenging novel or a thought-provoking article. The act was no longer a chore, but a cherished ritual, a foundational pillar of his sustained linguistic advancement and intellectual growth. His home remained his language laboratory, but now his conversations were richer, more complex, filled with nuanced expressions and authentic emotions. He practiced explaining concepts, debating ideas, and rehearsing important presentations, honing his skills daily. Learning through stories remained a beloved method, but he moved beyond simple narratives to challenging literary works, delving into deeper themes and intricate character developments. This broadened his perspective and enriched his vocabulary significantly. He actively sought out opportunities to talk in British English, refining his accent and expanding his repertoire of charming colloquialisms. He even started using British slang naturally in casual conversations, delighting his friends with his newfound fluency. The transformation was undeniable. Leo, once silent and insecure, now conversed with ease and enthusiasm, a testament to the power of deliberate practice and a positive mindset. He had truly learned how to talk in English confidently and effectively every day. He no longer dreaded mistakes. He saw them as guideposts. Each corrected error was a mini-victory, signaling a deeper understanding and improved precision. His initial question, "Why do I always make mistakes?" had evolved into, "How can I learn from this mistake effectively?" His journey proved that how to learn English wasn't about finding a magic bullet, but about combining simple, consistent strategies. Daily practice, reading for pleasure, talking at home, and embracing errors were the keys to his remarkable success. Leo's story became an inspiration, showing that fluency is a journey of continuous learning, not a destination of perfection. His fear had transformed into freedom, his silence into confident expression, proving anyone can achieve their language dreams through consistent effort. He now actively encourages others, sharing his methods. Talk in English just 1 page per day. Start talking at home. Learn English through stories. He emphasized reading for enjoyment and embracing every mistake as a crucial learning opportunity, truly. His initial hesitation had blossomed into a profound passion for the English language and its rich culture. Leo, the once timid student, was now a confident communicator, ready to embrace every new conversation, every challenge, with unwavering enthusiasm and skill. The world, once closed off by language barriers, had now opened wide. Leo found himself connecting with people from diverse backgrounds, understanding new perspectives, and experiencing life in a richer, more profound way, all thanks to his unwavering dedication.